The level 65 bracket was hard, but the level 80 bracket is on a whole other level. The first one was because of using level 50 builds, but this one is hard because we have our first ultimate boss in the infamous Rock dungeon. I headed to Kilba for the quest part. The first quest I took is the Kilba Peak Raskar Offerings. My character had to go to 6 different Raskar totems to bow in front of them. The second one I took was the Sign Song, where I had to investigate 3 suspect areas where I had to fight Black Tornadoes. After that, I learned about Piwaf, so I had to find her and her band to defeat them. The third one was to find 3 different Growlin sources, and I had to defeat more tornadoes. The last quest in the Kelba Peak was to defeat the Grand Orok in the Temple of Grand Orok dungeon. I did so, I gained my tokens and 35,000 kamas for each character. The second part of the Kelba quest was in the lands. I went to recover the merchandise that arrived in at Kelba's port, gave them to the smuggler going to Amakna. The second quest is related to the crowbacks that keep attacking the market more regularly, so I had to place 4 baits hoping to lure them. The third quest was to save some Kelba merchants from Mectors that are imposing big taxes on them, so I went and gave them some whooping. The fourth quest is to defeat a group of crowbats that are waiting on visitors and stealing their kamas at the Zap. The last one was to go check the Crow Cave dungeon and defeat its boss, which earned me 20 more tokens and 35,000 kamas. With that, I am finished with the Kelba mercenary quests. I headed to Bonta for this mercenary quest. The first one, I had to talk to the Justice Knight, who incited me to defeat some Perspec, just to understand what's going on. And then I went inside the house nearby to find more story about the Perspec and their alliance with the Bilibili. To find out more, I went into the bathroom dungeon. I found the room to the right which contained the story about how the Perspec were getting attacked by the Bontarians, so they had to make an alliance to defend themselves. I gave the news to the Justice Knight, who will do his job to bring peace to the area. So I went back to the mercenary quest, I informed him of the news, and he rewarded me. I chose for this bracket to use only mythical gear, and of course 1 epic and 1 relic item, without any legendary gear and no sublimation. For my Zelor, I went for full distance without specializing in melee or area masteries. This is before the update 1.81. And for this level, we have a new member. I switched my setup with Sakri. I really like Sakri because its ability to play AoE and in phase. I don't need to get the rear anymore, also it's something new to experience. For her, I built melee and of course Berserk masteries. I chose not to prioritize AoE or single masteries, as it was my first time making a Berserk build, but I hope it will work. For my mask, I continue to play her as distance and heal masteries. And of course I chose a little bit tanky items. Panda will be my main tank as usual, to place the monsters around and to place my team around. Especially with my Sakri, he would have an important job of surrounding her with the enemies. For the Fika, I just copied Panda's build, because it was the tankiest build I could come up with, and just switched a few items to give Fika a few more range. I did similar to Osa, but instead of just range, I choose to have items that give Wakfu points for Osa, since the class benefits a lot from Wakfu points, as well as its summons. And with that, I had just to farm. I will spare you the farming since it will be just the same as previous ones, and the video will take a long while to finish. The first dungeon I faced was the Retatombs. I choose to defeat the boss first because there is a special mechanic about the barrels. There is a glyph in front of barrels. If a character starts the turn on top of a glyph, it gains damage but loses resistances, so it allowed me to make a good first turn. However, the second turn effect is reversed. If you start 2 turns in a row, the second turn you will end up gaining resistances but losing damage. And there is a special mechanic about the boss. The more enemies you kill, the stronger the boss becomes, so it's recommended to kill him first so he doesn't become a killing machine. The second dungeon in the list was my first ultimate boss. Even if I played the game for a few years, I believe it's the first time I defeat an ultimate boss regardless of level. For this dungeon I used Elio instead of Zelor due to his burst capability, as I am only using a mythical build with no sublimations. The boss summons 2 totems at the beginning of the turn. One totem gives resistances to all enemies, where the other one summons 2 inactive dead sheep. After the boss plays, all inactive dead sheep in the field become alive and start acting and doing damage. For long fights, this hurt a lot. On Stasis 5, we have 2 new totems, 1 fire and 1 air. The fire one hits the closest enemy, or in this case my allies, with a fixed damage, while the air one hits the furthest. Both hit under the armor. So it's important to make sure that the closest one and the furthest one from the totems are someone who can tank the damage. The totems do not die, however, you can deactivate them for 2 turns. So for the resistance totem, it's important to defeat it before doing damage to the boss. So the plan was for me to prepare first and second turn by disabling the resistances totem, while preparing Elio's burst from the stacking earthquake and Sakri by stacking flaming return. So on turn 3, I did managed to almost one-shot the boss with both Sakri and Elio fully boosted. Once I killed the boss, it was just a matter of killing the dead sheep. Thankfully, I managed to have the Sakri just stand between the sheep with flaming. She managed to kill a big part of them easily. The third boss is the famous Orok dungeon. It's a really hard dungeon. Orok himself does a big AoE air damage at the start of the turn, so having air resistances is very important. I had to focus killing the crop bells first, as they do heavy earth damage, and after that I killed the rest of the enemies before focusing on the boss. I needed to shield and heal a lot to sustain the heavy damage caused by the boss and the poison damage that the parallel totems create. I did try this fight a bunch of times before finally succeeding. Fourth dungeon is the Crow Cave. At the beginning of the boss turn, they will just summon an area where damage next will be applied. Staying away from the area is important. The second mechanic is that all monsters have passes that allow them to redirect the damage back at you once it hits the maximum level, so you have to be aware of that, and the fight should be easy. The next one was Ostriches. The Ostrich dungeon is unique, as the boss is invulnerable until all eggs in the field are defeated. The eggs are also invulnerable, and the only way to remove the vulnerability is by successfully tackling the boss. To do so, you either have to have a character with a really high tackle, or you need to hit the eggs while they are invulnerable, as that gives you more tackle. Once you kill all the eggs, the boss becomes easy. I headed next to the Blibli dungeon. The Bliblis are dangerous in the room itself because the edges of the map are instant death cells. All the monsters either push, pull, or switch position with you, so staying in the middle of the map is really important to survive. Trying to kill Glies first was important as they push a lot. The boss has extra resistances. To remove them, you have to make him suffer collision in the face. Once you do so, you can do big damage to him. On the Bunta mines, we have the mosquitoes. They are simple, they drain your blood and gain Wakfu points that allow them to do bigger damage. But thankfully, it wasn't something significant that we had to worry about, so I just killed them. I headed then to Sadida for Giant Moon. This boss is interesting because to be able to defeat it, you have to hit it first to summon more scales and destroy enough of them to remove the invulnerability. Those scales explode next turn, so you have to be careful where you stand, but it should be an easy dungeon. Last one in the list was the Arashni dungeon. Boss is really dangerous because she applies the stat on you. It's called Angled. Once you start next turn near her, you enter a cocoon, which you can't exit until you get collision damage by your allies. The monsters have really high resistance from front and side, but they are weak from the rear, so the rear here is really important to kill them. I try to focus boss first to avoid instant deaths by having all my team getting into cocoons. I hope you liked this video and find it informative. Next bracket we will be doing another ultimate boss in the Sadida kingdom. Have a great week and a great day. See ya next time.